Okay, so today we're going to build this app that you see on the screen here in Google AI Studio, and it's going to be sort of an infinitely scrollable canvas where you can build and present themes, ideas, subtopics, make connections between them. You can animate the connections, you can move around the nodes, and you can add custom text, colors, different things. You can zoom in and out. You can save the location of each group of items as a topic and sort of just jump to them by using the menu here. And so we're going to do this in Google AI Studio. We're going to start with just a basic notepad, write down our ideas, put them into Gemini to help us sort of clarify and refine the ideas, and then finally put those into Google AI Studio. This is sort of a long video. It's about 1 hour and 45 minutes, but I'm going to show you from start to finish how to create this app. And I expect this to only be part 1 of a series where we go and fine-tune this even further to create a back end where we can store our projects and data with user credentials and login, and refine a number of other features. But this video is going to be about how to get started and how to get to this what you see here. By the end of this video, we're going to be able to create this. All right, so let's dig in, have some fun, and get started on this creative project. All right, I'm at a place in my YouTube channel where I want to grow it, but a lot of the stuff I want to talk about is kind of too technical for just a talking head video. Plus, I don't feel like I have the most energetic personality to do a lot of talking head videos. I've done them, but it makes me feel awkward just looking at a camera and talking. I'm not super expressive, and I don't smile a ton naturally. I'm an introvert, so that type of video makes me feel pretty uncomfortable. However, I have a lot of knowledge and experience that I think could be valuable. So I thought we could run through an app idea that I have to create a live canvas presentation app. So this would be used by myself and others to create presentations and do videos in real time as we're talking, as we're thinking. And so here's my idea. You can follow me through the thought process. I've kind of outlined my thoughts here. And then I'm going to plug this into Gemini. It's going to help me refine the idea. And then we're going to take the final result, go to Google AI Studio, and build the app. So I'm thinking of an idea where I can create an app that simulates a sort of whiteboard or PowerPoint environment, except I can type, draw, insert icons, images, animations, shapes, and effects. So I can talk and teach in real time and add the elements that I want as I go. Sort of a digital interactive whiteboard presentation app. I need help coming up with ideas for the app, how it should work, how to make it frictionless so that I can focus on teaching and not be slowed down too much by choosing the elements I want to place on the canvas. Help me write a good, clear description of such an app, its features, its visuals, its functionality, and its appearance. All right, I'll use the description you write, as in the AI that I'm going to have help me, and I will later refine it and provide it to an AI assistant to help me create the app. In my mind, I have sort of a widescreen PowerPoint canvas with a left sidebar and a right sidebar. There's a sidebar control at the bottom right, which controls the scale of the canvas in real time, so the user can scale in and out as their conversation expands. They might start zoomed in talking about managing a budget, and then they can quickly scale up to show a large canvas, and everything they previously were working on shrinks on the larger canvas, so they have room to add other elements and expand to other topics, while the original content remains on the screen, just smaller in scale. So this would be equivalent to talking and presenting on a whiteboard. A lot of times you see people presenting on whiteboards, they'll flip the page. So they want to talk about one topic, they'll flip to a new page, start talking about another topic, and then they might have a page later on that brings it all together. That's kind of what I want to do digitally with this app. The left sidebar has elements that can be added, such as shapes, lines, connectors, effects, and the right side has shortcuts to various topics that the user has created on the canvas. When the user adds the first item to the canvas, the app creates a topic and lists it in the right sidebar. The user can continue placing more elements on the canvas under this topic. The topic is essentially just a location on the canvas. That's really all it is at this point. There is a plus symbol inside of a circle button at the top of the topic list, which allows the user to start a new topic. When they do this, a little crosshair appears in the canvas called Add Topic with a green check mark inside of an oval button. When the user clicks this or simply hits enter, a new topic is created at the location. If they want to create it at a different location, the user can freely move the crosshair and then click the check mark when they're happy with the location. They can also pan and zoom while the crosshair remains on the screen and waits for them to to find the perfect location before clicking it. Once clicked, the new topic, here I'm just going to separate this out. Once clicked, the new topic is added to the list of topics on the right sidebar. The right topics sidebar is essentially a list of topics that the user has added, but each topic just represents a location on the canvas. The user can click on any topic to jump to it immediately to that location on the canvas. When they do that, the location is centered on the screen and the scale or zoom level is adjusted to show it clearly. The left sidebar should be full of basic shapes, connectors, text options, and other elements that require just a single tap or click to place them on the canvas. When tapped or clicked, the item is instantly placed at the current position on the canvas and at a scale that's appropriate to display it clearly. For example, if a circle is selected, that circle should be immediately placed at the center of the view, taking up approximately 10% of the view height. Each element placed on the canvas can be quickly and easily scaled by using standard controls. I gotta move this little control out of the way so I can read. Of the view, taking up, sorry, I lost my place here. Each element placed on the canvas can be quickly and easily scaled by using standard controls that often appear in other apps, such as the corner grab, the edge grab, the rotation grab. These are all little handles that we're all used to seeing in other apps where you can rotate, resize, and rearrange shapes and objects. The user can also tap, click, and drag the center of the place item to anywhere they wish on the canvas to relocate it. We will want to include tasteful and modern visuals, gradients, effects, animations, but keep it simple and straightforward enough that we do not distract from the main function of the app or create friction or slow down the user from the primary goal, which is creating and presenting quickly and clearly. Let's start with this description. Please review all of my description, refine it, clarify it, and remove unnecessary fluff that just confuses things. However, keep all the details that I described about how it works because I put a lot of thought into the design. So I probably spent about 30 minutes writing all this. I'm going to take that and copy it, bring it over to Gemini. And then I already did this before I started recording, so you can kind of see Gemini took that prompt and then assumed I was a coder or a developer and gave me instructions on like how to build it. But then I clarified for Gemini, it kept on refining it here. And I had to clarify for Gemini that I'm not actually the programmer here. I'm just going to use it to plug into Google AI Studio. So I said, I want a complete prompt that I can plug into Google AI Studio to create the app from start to finish. So I kind of redirected it to take all of its information and put it into one big detailed prompt that I can use in Google AI Studio. And this is what it came up with. It's got system instructions telling Google AI Studio to act as a lead software engineer, create a fully functional React prototype live canvas presentation tool. It goes into detail about the requirements, the architecture, the logic, navigation, the UX. All right, and so this is as far as I got on my own before I started recording, and I'm going to take this and plug it into Google AI Studio. So I'll pause this real quick so you don't have to watch me fumble around, and then I'll resume in just a second. Okay, so here I am over in Google AI Studio. Of course, you always, if you're starting from scratch here, you go to build, and then here's your prompt. You can choose a model. I'm going to stick with the newest one, Gemini 3.1 Pro. You can put in system instructions, framework, whether or not you want to use your paid API key or free quota. And actually, I'm not real sure why it's using my paid API key now that I look at it. Okay, I pressed reset and it's going back to my free quota. That's good for usually a couple hours worth of work, your free quota per day, a couple hours, and then as you get into more complicated requests or you go past a couple of hours, you'll end up getting a prompt to put in your paid API key. So I'm going to plug in the prompt that Gemini helped me create. And I guess I should answer that question. Why would I use Gemini? Why wouldn't I just go straight to Google AI Studio? Well, the answer is Google AI Studio is more of a builder. It's not a very good conversationalist. And I already have you can use Gemini for free. And I have a paid plan, a pro plan, but you can use it for free. And using it for free gets all the hard work done so that by the time you get over here, you don't waste your valuable Google AI Studio credits on just coming up with ideas. It's already, the idea is already there. It's got clear instructions and it can go to work without wasting time, wasting tokens talking about it. So I'm going to go ahead and click build. And now it's thinking. So this will probably take a few minutes. In my experience, building a new app, at least the first draft of it, usually takes 3 to 5 minutes for Google AI Studio. So I will put my recording on pause and come back to you in just a second with the results. Oh, I just remembered something that I wanted to mention here that's relevant to this. You've got these different grades of different levels of Gemini you can use. Fast is obviously the fastest and the cheapest. You can use a lot of it for free. I don't even know if I've ever run into a limit on how much of the fast answers I can use. Thinking uses the same fast logic, but then it kind of reiterates it and runs it through a loop where it thinks more complex about the fast answers. It's also fairly cheap to run, and so thinking I felt like was the best combination between speed and accuracy and cost for this little project. Now, when I actually go to Google AI Studio, I'm going to be using Pro because I want the Pro level for the coding, for the actual app. But thinking, I feel like, is kind of the best middle ground for summarizing problems, coming up with solutions. Fast is just like, hey, tell me something about the population of a city, or tell me a statistic on unemployment, or some little fast answer. Thinking is when you want to solve problems, come up with a really detailed summary. So that's what I used here. I would not waste your tokens on Pro for something like just coming up with a summary, because you have a limited amount of those per day. And otherwise, you got to start dipping into your paid API keys, and I don't like to do that unless I'm working on something that's going to make me money, right? So, all right, just wanted to let you in on that kind of little tip. Fast is for simple answers, thinking is for complex problems, like it says, and then Pro is only for the final application when you really need it to code accurately. And that's what we will be using in Google AI Studio over here, as specified in the settings here, Pro. All right, we'll be right back. Hey, I know I still don't have the app ready, but I thought you might want to hear me rant just a little bit about how Google AI Studio has been working lately, because sort of the third week of February, maybe the second or third week of February, they did a big rollout with the new 3.1. They went from 3.0 to 3.1. That was, in my opinion, that was a disaster of a rollout. So it was completely unusable for about a week. Any prompt you put in there would either time out, error out, just give an absolute junk result. So it was unusable for a week, and I tried it every day. And they even admit that, I think, right here on there. Yeah, so this is the period of the rollout here. what does that say? February 18th is when it started. And I was trying it every day throughout here. Somewhere around day 7, it started working a little bit, and that's why it describes it as a partial outage. But let me tell you, they had these days marked green. They were not admitting fault in any of this until thousands and thousands of users were just on the forums complaining about it, and then they finally marked them red and orange, admitting there was a problem. But that was a little frustrating because it took multiple days before they even acknowledged this was happening. And in the meantime, you're using up tokens and you're actually getting billed when you go past your free quota. So that was a rough rollout. Right around day 10, it started being semi-useful, but it would still have trouble. It was really slow. I think it was probably overwhelmed with the number of users trying to catch up on work they had missed. Let's see how this is going. Okay, this is starting to build. But anyway, I think it was around day 12 or so. It was the beginning of March when I could actually start getting some work done again on it. And even then, even since then, it hasn't been fully functional. I think it's only been fully functional now for about 3 days from me. Prior to that, it worked, but it wouldn't accept paid API keys. So once you ran out of your daily free quota, it just stopped working. And if you put in a paid API key, it would accept it, but then it would just say you reached your quota again. So, essentially useless after your free quota was done. I think that was intentional, actually, even though it looked like a bug. I think Google put some kind of stops in place so that people wouldn't continue racking up bills on their paid API keys when they knew it was not fully functional. That's just my gut feeling, my hunch. That was Google's way of limiting their liability and limiting the potential lawsuits or whatever that people might be filing on lost work. But anyhow, it does work now. And another thing I found that you might want to know about is peak usage versus like sort of non-peak usage hours. So what I find is anywhere in the evening, it works much faster. If you, like, I'm on Pacific time, and if I log in around like 5-6 p.m., which is 8-9 p.m. East Coast time, then that pretty much covers, of course I'm in the United States, but that pretty much covers the whole United States is having like dinner and going home from work, commuting, spending time with their family, going out and doing things with their friends. So that type of time, a lot of people aren't working like super productively. And for those of us who are able, it's a perfect time to get in on Google AI Studio because the bandwidth is super good, the speed is super fast, the intelligence is there. I was amazed the other night, things that used to take 20 minutes to process were getting done in 30 to 60 seconds. And that showed me that Google AI Studio actually has the ability to do things quickly, but it's throttled by the amount of usage at any given time. So that's my tip is try to find non-peak usage hours, typically evenings, in the US at least. I think the server that I most commonly use when I'm building an app, you have to choose anyway, this is getting a little bit off on a rabbit trail, but when I build an app that has a Firebase database backend, I usually choose a location in the middle of the country, like the Midwest, because it's a good balance between both coasts, and no one gets extreme latency. Of course, if you're on the West Coast, if you pick a West Coast server location, then all your users on the West Coast get faster speeds than the East Coast. And if you pick an East Coast location, then East Coast users get faster speeds. So I figure Midwest is kind of a good middle ground that serves everybody equally. All right, this is building the app. It's got 2 files created so far. It's been running for 545 seconds, which I believe is about 8 minutes, 9 minutes. I don't know. Can't do the math in my head right now. And we'll pause the recording and come back in a second with the next phase. Okay, here we are. We've got some kind of result here. I'm going to read over what it claims it did, and then we'll test it out. It says, I've built the live Canvas application as a single file React prototype based on your specifications. Core architecture. The system manages elements, shapes, and text, connectors, and topics. Frictionless placement. Clicking a shape on the left sidebar instantly places it at the exact center of your current view. Let's see, so I can read this while testing it over here. Let's see, we'll just click okay, it placed a square. Placed a circle. I mean, the first draft is never like super, it's usually not super impressive. Okay, and that's the rotation. Now, it's a little excessive on all these handles, but I'd rather the handles just appear when you get close to the object, not all the time. But I guess, hey, that's actually okay, because the handles go away when I click outside of it. All right, and then text. And is this resizable? Yep, it's resizable, it's rotatable. How about connectors? I'm kind of curious. Connectors are always tricky because they have to adapt to the objects. Yeah, connectors aren't working as far as I can tell. Oh, save topic here. Okay, so this is topic 1. One thing I'm going to have to explain to the app is that I wanted it to be sort of infinitely adjustable, or at least start in the middle, because it looks like it started at minimum zoom. So that means now I can't really zoom out because it's already at minimum zoom or maximum zoom, whatever way you want to talk about it. So all I can do right now is make things larger, not smaller. All right, so what else did it say it did? Topic, crosshair system. Clicking the plus button enters planning mode with a fixed crosshair. You can pan and zoom to frame your shot. Then click the Save Topic Here button to save the spatial bookmark. Oh, that's what this is. Gotcha. Okay. Not a big fan of that implementation. I think I want to be able to drag the crosshair around too. Okay, so topic 1, topic 2. Now that works. Look at that. And not only did it move it, but it scaled it. I noticed something. Okay, so let's say we were in a project and we're talking about a big topic, but then we're talking about a smaller subtopic. And okay, smaller subtopic. And I'll just forget it. Delete that. Okay, so there's the smaller subtopic, and I wanted to make that a topic in the list over here. It zooms. Oh, okay. Okay, the zoom is way too finicky. Now I'm going to save that. And this is what's cool. It actually did what I was imagining. Just not like super smooth, but it did it. Topic 1 is over here. We're talking about, some large topic, and then we're like, okay, let's branch off and talk about this other topic. It actually zooms in and relocates to the subtopic, which is exactly what I had in mind. And then I want to go back out and talk about the big topic again. So it did that. Smooth navigation. Clicking on a saved topic uses Canvas tweening to smoothly animate the camera. Okay, well, it worked well. I like the animation is smooth, and it switches back and forth. Oh, and look at that. That was because I created a topic at that zoom level, and then I created a topic at this zoom level. So that's pretty cool. It's really neat seeing your imagination come to life. Like literally just 25 minutes ago, I was thinking about this, then I wrote it, then I plugged it in, AI helped me summarize it, And here we are, we're starting to create an app that does what I was imagining. So I just think that's cool. Sticky connectors. The connection lines dynamically update their start and endpoints based on bounding box intersections, ensuring they always point to the edges of connected shapes. Well, I don't know. It's going to have to prove that to me because I don't really see it doing what it's claiming. The connection lines dynamically update their start and endpoints. I mean, this arrow doesn't seem to do anything. So we're going to have to fix the connector. UI, UX. The app features a dark theme with a subtle dot grid background. Okay. And dragging the background to pan. Yep, I'm happy with the panning is good. Double click text elements to edit them. Use the delete or backspace key to remove selected elements. Very cool. And then you can still edit them after the fact. So if I was to decide I want to make that larger. All right, so there's our rough draft. I think that's pretty good. I mean, it's not visually appealing, but it has the foundation of exactly what I wanted to build. And you know what? I'm actually going to use this. The tools I like to build are the ones I'm going to use myself. So I'm going to ask Google AI Studio to make some modifications here. I think the first one that's really important for this app to function properly is it needs to start at halfway on the zoom level. So we need to have like a 0 to 500 or something, and then it should just default to 250. And the scrolling, I mean, that might be partially because of my mouse is sensitive, but the scrolling is way too severe. All right, I'm going to type in these modifications. I gotta move this out of my way. And I won't make you watch me do that boring stuff, so I'll be back. Okay, so here's the prompt I gave it to try to fix some of the issues. The app starts at the minimum zoom level, which leaves no room for zooming out further. Let's have the app default to mid zoom level, 250%. When it starts up so that the user has freedom to move in and out of the canvas. Also, the zoom is incredibly sensitive. Can we make it less sensitive so that the user can zoom gradually without going min-max so quickly? Also, the connectors don't seem to work at all. When I click on the connector arrow icon and try to place a connector, nothing happens. So it's working on these requests, and we'll get back shortly with the results. All right, we've got a result here. Let's read it over. The default zoom level. The app now starts at a default zoom of 250% or scale 2.5 with the viewport centered correctly so you have plenty of room to zoom in or out. Smoother zoom sensitivity. I've adjusted the mouse wheel zoom logic. It now checks the magnitude of the scroll event, and it uses a very subtle 1.02 multiplier for trackpads, which emit many small scroll events, and a slightly larger 1.05 multiplier for traditional mouse wheels. This makes zooming feel much more gradual and controllable. Okay, so let's test. Well, I'll keep reading in a second, but let's test some of these features. So we've got the circle. Oh, it changed the thickness of the circle line, apparently. It does scroll smoother. I mean, it still kind of jumps in increments of 50%, which is pretty large jumps. Let's see, I'm going to use my trackpad and see what the results are. The trackpad appears to have a little bit more granular control versus the mouse. All right, it's workable. It's usable. And I'm going to put a text label. I'll just call this mid-level zoom. Man, what's up with the fonts being so thick? I don't know what it did. all the lines are just super thick now. And then I'll call this one minimum zoom. And then we'll go maximum zoom. That needs to be a little more maximum. Okay, and we'll try placing topics at each one of these. So this would be like a subtopic. Can I name them? Nope. I'm going to need to add that feature so I can name the topics. Oops. And we'll call this one, that's the mid-level zoom. And then up here, oh, there's a, I guess we'll call this one zoom level 3. Hopefully you see where I'm going with this. Oh, that's why the lines are thicker, because it doesn't scale the lines for the zoom level. I could see why, but we're gonna have to deal with that because you can't have lines being super thick at high zoom levels. Okay, and here's another zoom level, and then we'll go all the way out and make another one here, and we'll just call this min. What did I call it? What did I name all these? Mid, max. Okay, so this would be min. You'll see my point in a second, hopefully. I just want to demonstrate like how this is working. So that would be min zoom. All right, so theoretically, as we scroll through each one of these, we got max zoom, mid-level, zoom 3, min zoom, and we can go all the way down again. That is pretty cool. I like it. Because, I mean, this reflects how I think, right? Like you think about this, and then you're like, oh, but that connects to this bigger topic, and oh, that bigger topic has some other stuff I wanted to talk about at a lower level. And then within these levels, we'll be able to create like spider webs of ideas. Because keep in mind, the whole purpose of this app is to present, to make a presentation tool that works at the speed of thought, sort of, so that you can just create things out of thin air as soon as you think them. Sort of like I'm doing right now. And let's see what else this says it did. Fixed and improved connectors. The connector tool has been completely overhauled. You can now use a click and drag approach. All right, let's test that at, we'll just test it here at zoom level 3. We'll make another connector. And I don't even need any text. I just want to test this. Oh, okay. So it did create a connector, but is the connector smart enough to follow it? Sort of. It follows it, but in a really clunky sort of way. I want it to follow it in a smooth, real-time way. Okay, what does it say about the connectors? You can now use a click and drag approach. Alternatively, you can use a click, then click approach. Okay, so we'll try that. Click, then click. Okay. And another thing I see that it does is it always connects at the same point. I guess it connects at what is this called a tangent or whatever? It's where the midpoint of the circle is. So I can't like make a connector from here to there because it'll snap it to the midpoint or the tangent. So, which is fine. That's typically how flowcharts and stuff like that work. The connection logic correctly calculates the bounding box intersections so the arrow points exactly to the edges of the shapes. I guess that's what it's talking about there. And I'll put a square. I just want to see how it works with a square. Okay. Yep, so it's going to like the middle of the shape. Not the middle of the edge, but the middle of the shape. And that's good. That looks, I'd say it looks aesthetically pleasing. The animation could be improved though. I don't like how it just stays there until you let go and then it snaps over. I want it to follow it. Cool, so this would be like a canvas of an idea we're talking about, and then we can zoom in and talk about this topic. But it's weird because the mouse behavior, I'm not a big fan of how it implemented the mouse behavior. Each click of the mouse, or each little click of the mouse wheel moves a lot, like too much. And yet when I scroll fast, it doesn't get any faster. So it's actually throttling my mouse wheel speed because I told it was too drastic, but it kind of took the wrong approach, and I want to be able to zoom quickly. I just don't want it to always be min-max instantly, right? So I'm going to clarify that. And instead of thinking and typing in front of you, I'm going to put this on pause and think of how I'm going to prompt that, and I'll be right back. All right, so here's how I prompted it. I said, zooming doesn't quite work as desired. Whatever throttle control you put on zooming prevents me from zooming in and out quickly. It artificially slows me down. I want the speed back, except I want the speed to be high resolution so that each click of the mouse wheel or step of the trackpad counts for a small amount of zoom, so that I have greater resolution over the zoom level instead of jumping by major percentages. So I guess put another way, I want the ability to zoom quickly, but at high resolution instead of jumping from major zoom levels. So we're going to let the AI Studio work on that for a minute and come right back with the results. Okay, so that actually finished really quick. It was only about a minute I had to wait for the result. It says it's updated the zoom logic to give you exactly what we described, high resolution zooming that scales continuously with your scroll speed. Yeah, that's a good point, because I think at low zoom levels, a little bit of scrolling had a small effect, but at large zoom levels, a little bit of scrolling had a larger effect. So it's actually scaling the zoom speed now according to the zoom level. That makes a lot of sense. It was a smart way to do it, and I didn't even describe that exactly to tell it how to do it. So instead of jumping by fixed percentages, the app now calculates a continuous scale factor based directly on the delta Y of your scroll wheel or trackpad. This means trackpads have small, slow movements. Let's just try some of this out here. Okay, we're going to use the trackpad. Okay, it takes a lot of gesturing on the trackpad to make it move a little, which is what I asked for. It might just be a little too extreme. The mouse is much better. I like the way the mouse works because I have great control over the zoom level. I think I just want the trackpad to sort of be sped up a little bit. But yeah, I'm really happy with the mouse. That's exactly what I was wanting. And then mouse wheel standard clicks will zoom at a comfortable, predictable rate. Fast scrolling, if you flick your trackpad or spin your mouse wheel quickly, the canvas will rapidly zoom in or out without artificially slowing you down. Yeah, it does. at least with the mouse. Now let's try the trackpad. No, it doesn't really. The trackpad just doesn't move fast enough. That's what it does. Okay, I'm gonna ask it to fix that. So I said the mouse works great. The trackpad, however, is too slow and needs to be sped up. It takes a great amount of gesturing to move the scale a small amount. So while that's working, I just wanted to talk about something real quick here. If you're wondering, like, well, looking at this and thinking that's not very impressive, right? We got a black background and like 2 shapes and a couple items here, but we've got the functionality. That's what I care about. When I'm building apps, I'm focused on getting the functionality first and then putting the polish on later. So if we have the functionality of an app with an infinitely scalable canvas, responsive controls, resizable, rotatable, adjustable elements, and jump to location features, that's the foundation for something great. Now we can add anything we want. Now, once the foundation is built, we can add animations. Like one of the things I wanted to do was tell it on the connector lines, build in animations, optional of course, so that I can click on a connector line and say add flow, right? Like add flow animation, and then it can show flow going from one node to another. For example, if I'm doing a presentation on how to move data from your hard drive to the cloud or something like that, I might want to show flow on a connector. But we can add all the pretty stuff later. We're just building a foundation for how the app works right now. Okay, it looks like Google AI Studio finished responding to the trackpad complaint. It said, since you mentioned the mouse wheel was working great, I left its sensitivity exactly as was for the trackpad. Multiplies by 5 times speed now. If it detects 2-finger scroll, which emits much smaller delta values than a mouse wheel, it multiplies the zoom speed by 4 times. Okay, I'm not sure how that's going to work, but I guess we'll find out. This should give you the fast, high-resolution zooming you want. And another thing we'll add later is like a backend, so we can save our results. Right now, every time we give it a new prompt, it resets the canvas. So I have to keep creating these shapes and text. But long term, we're going to make this have a backend, and it will have a user login credential and save your work. You'll be able to save projects. Okay, so that's the mouse. The mouse still works pretty good. Actually, I don't know. I feel like it went backwards on the mouse. Oh, you know what? I have a special program installed on my laptop that I think converts mouse wheel movement into trackpad movement for smoothness, but it's having an unintended result. Now, actually, the trackpad works perfectly, so that's funny. Well, that's kind of my bad. I'm going to have to figure out a way to deal with that. So, yeah, I've got this thing called, what is it called again? Mac Mouse Fix. And it converts mouse movement into smoother movements so that you can scroll more smoothly and things. But I think it's messing with it. So the app is detecting my mouse movement as trackpad movement, I think is what's going on. Because now the mouse is clunky and the trackpad is smooth. That's trackpad right there. Super smooth. I like that. Okay, I'm going to ask the app if it can intelligently fix this without me having to shut off my mouse modifier. All right, so I wanted to talk about some of my other ideas for this app while it's working on fixing the mouse jumping. one of the ideas, like I was talking about, is I want to create flow for connectors. So if you're talking about how money flows or how data flows or how anything flows, maybe energy, calories, all kinds of things that might flow through systems, we can add flow animations to a connector line. So that's going to be great. And then instead of just having squares and circles, I want a pretty large selection of shapes. And I want to have icons also. Now, Lucid, I think there's a Lucid library of icons that are free. They're free for even for commercial use, I believe. You can't obviously copyright them or anything like that, but they are available to use for apps. And I use them in a lot of these apps. They're really great. They just sort of represent basic functionality icons. Yeah, so here's the Lucid React icon library. It's got everything you could think of. Text, shapes, arrows, even things like foods, books, graphs, circles and buttons, clouds, connectors. So anyway, there's like 1,703 icons and counting. They add new ones every now and then. So these icons are great because they're not just black and white icons, like let's take, here, what's a good one to use as a sample here? We'll just take this little arrow. And then you can make it thicker or thinner. You can make it, you can scale it. You can change the color to anything, right? So this entire icon library is customizable. So when you're building an app in Google AI Studio, you really would be better off, just instead of making all of your own icons, use the Lucid icon library, and it'll save you a ton of time. We'll get back to that in a minute. Let's just see what it came up with. So, the app says, or the little chat bot says, I see exactly what happened. In the previous update, I added a hard threshold that multiplied the zoom by 4 if the scroll delta was under 60. The problem is that depending on your OS scroll settings, a mouse wheel click might emit a delta of 53. Because 53 is less than 60, it got multiplied by 4, resulting in a massive 212 delta. Meanwhile, a faster mouse wheel spin might emit 100, which didn't get multiplied, resulting in a smaller jump. That's why the mouse felt jumpy and unpredictable. I've completely removed the hard threshold and replaced it with a sublinear curve. Okay. This is much more elegant because it's completely continuous. All right, let's test it out. Mid zoom and mouse scroll, not bad, still a little jumpy. I just, like 2 versions ago before these prompts, it was completely smooth, where I felt like every click had just a nice high resolution result, and it's still a little bit jumpy, but this isn't bad. Let's see how the trackpad works. Trackpad is a little on the slow side, but not too bad. Yeah, that's a little slower than I would prefer, but it's smoother than the mouse. Yeah, I'm going to keep refining this because that's one of the major foundational features of this app. It has to scroll smoothly. It has to be quick and responsive, and I have to have high resolution control over the zoom level. So this is not something I'm going to settle for. I'm going to get this right. So I'm just going to pause the recording for a minute while I talk to the chat a little more about how to fix this. Okay, honestly, in a situation like this, I might have to go back a couple versions to when I was happy with the mouse controls, and then just have the the agent work on the trackpad controls, because the mouse is the majority of the time that I'm going to be using the mouse the majority of the time in this app, and that's more important to me that that works right. The trackpad is kind of nice to have, but if it's a little slow, because 2 versions ago I was super happy with the mouse controls, but I was just complaining that the trackpad was a little too slow. So that's kind of what I told the chat agent, is like, get me back to the high resolution mouse control. And when I had too slow of a trackpad, I can deal with that if I have to, but got to get the mouse right. What was I talking about? I know I was talking about the features I want to add to connectors. Obviously, I want to make them have customizable endpoints, so the arrows can be customized, whether it's a solid arrow, an open arrow, a line style arrow. I want it to have flow animations, optional, that you could like create a connector, right click on it, add flow animation, change the direction of the flow. I want those connectors to be dynamic and follow the shapes in a smooth real-time way, so that as you move the shape, the connector follows it in real time. I also want it to be able to create curves, so the connector shouldn't always be a straight line from point to point. Sometimes I want it to gracefully create curves when it needs to, just for aesthetics. And then yeah, I was talking about shapes and lucid icons. That's another thing. I want to have a large library of elements that you can add besides just, these basic things over here. So a complete lucid icon library where you can create icons. Also, I'm thinking of adding like a little AI button where you can click on the AI and tell it what asset you want to create. And of course that would require an API key, because I can't have everybody who uses this app like charging my account with all their creations. But I would have a field where the user can enter the API key and then generate assets for themselves. So if you don't find what you want in the icon library, or you want an image or something else, you could click on that little AI generator and prompt what you want, and then put it on the canvas. All right, so it says I've completely rewritten the zoom logic to give you exactly what you're asking for high resolution control of the mouse wheel while keeping the trackpad fast. Here's what the new logic does. The trackpad boost multiplies the scroll. I got distracted. Multiplies the scroll inputs by 2.5 and 4 for pinch to zoom. This ensures the trackpad feels fast and responsive. The mouse wheel cap strictly caps the maximum zoom change per event. Yeah, it doesn't sound like it exactly did what I wanted, so I might have to revert to like 3 versions ago. I'm going to test it out and see. I mean, it's not bad. Okay, trackpad's faster, that's good. Yeah, that's about the speed I like. When I'm talking, I want to be able to go like, whoom, here's a topic, and then, back out and create another topic at this level, and then zoom back in and talk about this again, zoom out, pan over, nice and fast. The mouse, works decent. I just want a little bit more control over the resolution, because look, it jumps. Okay, I'm going to give it another shot. Sorry for making you sit through this, but that's why I'm kind of talking about other subjects while the agent works, because I can be thinking about future features while it works on getting this mouse zooming correct. Okay, here's what I've decided to do. I'm going to show you how to do this in case you're building in Google AI Studio 2. I've decided that instead of continuing to iterate on this and ask it for fixes, I'm going to go back to the last version that I liked, which is, I said the mouse works great. The trackpad, however, is too slow. Well, I want to restore from that checkpoint because I was really happy with the way the mouse worked. And then we can always work on the trackpad speed separately. Because sometimes if you start going down the wrong road and you're making all these little adjustments, you get further and further away from the version that you liked. And over time, the code can collect artifacts and errors and little things that, you know, maybe you didn't notice got changed. So always try to go back to a version that you liked and then branch from there with your changes. Don't continually work on a feature that isn't quite right, and then 10 versions later you're like, oh, you know, I forget what version I liked, right? Because you're so far away from it. So I'm going to restore. And then you go down to the bottom and it says restoring from. All right, so on this version, I was really happy with how the mouse worked. Yeah, look at that. That's super smooth. I can go quick, I can go fast, I can pan around. I love the amount of control I have with the mouse here. So smooth. It was just the trackpad was too slow. So I'm going to ask the agent to work on that once more. Without changing any of the mouse functionality, I'm going to ask it to focus on just making the trackpad a little faster. Okay, so here's another tip. What I did is I wrote it this way. The mouse works great. Don't make any changes to the mouse functionality. However, trackpad is too slow. Can we speed it up? Then I said, be careful. Last time you tried to speed it up, the trackpad ended up also making the mouse zoom levels too drastic. And I want the mouse behavior to stay exactly as it is right now, and just the trackpad response to be faster and require less gesture movement to zoom. Not lower resolution, just higher speed. So, you know, you can talk to this agent like you would probably talk to a fellow developer or something. It's like you can revisit problems and errors that were made in the past, explain what you learned from it, and help the agent not make the same mistakes again. And then also, one of the things you learn as you're building apps is I lost my train of thought for a second. I had to pause. So one of the things you learn as you're building apps is you make mistakes in the way you describe things, right? And of course, it's a computer, so it's just going to do what you say. And sometimes when you say things in an imprecise way or an incorrect way, or you misspell or use, you know, bad grammar or whatever, you can affect the outcome because the computer's just going to do exactly what you asked for. It does a decent job sometimes of correcting minor typos and things, but you need to do your due diligence in making sure you're as precise and clear and accurate as possible. So I'm going to let that work, and then we'll continue talking about. Oh, it's so fast I didn't even get a chance to talk about anything else. Okay, so it says I implemented a custom acceleration curve. I'm not going to read it all again. It says it's improved the trackpad performance without messing up the mouse performance, so we'll test that. No, it didn't. It messed up the mouse. Oh, this is a tough one. Sometimes you get stuck on certain things, and it's not really because the agent did anything wrong. It's because what you're asking for is technically difficult or complicated, right? So I think the reason this happens is simply because every mouse movement emits many movement signals compared to the trackpad, right? So one click of the mouse could equal 30 events, like 30 zoom events, and one movement of the trackpad might only equal, you know, 1 or 2 zoom events. And so it's struggling with balancing the two out. And I don't know, if I knew the exact ratio of mouse movement to trackpad movement, I could just tell it, but I don't. And then it could scale it like differently. because it doesn't know, as far as I am aware, it doesn't know whether my input is a mouse or a trackpad. It just knows it's getting signals. It's getting zoom signals from a device. And how do you have a different scale for one or the other? It's tough to do. So I'm going to restore back to the previous one. Okay, so I decided I'm just going to stick with this. I reverted back to the version where the mouse worked really smoothly, and I'm happy with it, and I will address the trackpad thing later. This is trackpad. Little slow for my taste, but not a major issue. I'm happy with the mouse movement. So we're going to focus on something else now, or else we'd spend all day on that. Okay, so the connector line. I don't want the connector line to do that. Right, so it disconnects from the shape when you move the shape. I want it to follow the shape. I'm going to describe that in a prompt, and we'll see what the result is. So I said connectors snap to shapes, and that's great. However, I want the connector to follow the shape as it's moved around the canvas in real time. All right, I prompted it to move the connectors in real time to follow the shapes, and looks like it worked. So now the connector follows the shape around. One thing I think we should try is multiple connectors from multiple shapes. Yep, that works. So now we have the ability to create, kind of like spider webs or mind maps and other things. I think the next thing we should do is add icons. That's going to be sort of a really powerful addition to the app, because then we can start to create visual representations of what's on our mind. And I'm going to prompt that right now and get back to you shortly. Okay, so I went ahead and prompted this feature. I said it works great. Now let's add a new type of element to the left sidebar. Icons. Import the full Lucid icon library and add a color selector with a wide range of colors to choose from. Add a button to the left sidebar that's represented by a smiley face. That'll just be our button for the icon library, and it should open the icon library and allow the user to choose an icon and a color. It should also include a search field to allow the user to quickly search the 1,703 Lucid icons to find the one they want. Once the user has selected an icon and a color, placed on the canvas, it should be movable, scalable, and rotatable like all other elements, and accept connectors to and from the other elements as well. So I'm really looking forward to this, because honestly, once I have icons in here, I could start using this for presentations, because it's got the basic functionality. It's got, everything can move around and scale. It's got zooming and panning. It's got text. I do want to expand the text features so I can do like lists and things, not just single line text, but we'll get to that a little bit later. So it's working on that prompt right now, and we'll come back in a few minutes and see how that turned out. All right, let's check it out. So we've got an icon picker modal. Clicking the new smiley face button in the left sidebar opens a modal, full Lucid library. The modal displays the full Lucid React library over 1,700 icons. All right, here it is. We'll do, oh, that's not 1,700. It's lying to us. But we'll just pick one for example. And it did not ask us for a color, so that's a problem. But it is movable and rotatable. Oh, maybe I had to pick a color. Yeah, so I'd have to pick a color and then pick an icon, which is not my favorite design. I would rather that I can pick the color, pick the icon, and click like OK or something. That's what I think I'll ask for. But it definitely is missing most of the icons, unless it's just hiding them. Let's see, like cloud is an icon. Oh, look at all those clouds. Yet it doesn't show any of them. So they're hidden. You have to type to find what you want. muscle or bicep. Yeah, I've used this one in some of my apps for like representing a workout. Let's see. So okay, so it's got these. It's got the icons we asked for. It's putting squares around all of them. I don't like that. I'm going to ask it to remove the squares, update the selector so that there's like an OK button or something, so that you get a preview of the icon in its chosen color, and then click OK. And then remove the squares, and yeah, I think that's what I'll prompt. Oh, and to show the whole library, or at least allow you to scroll through the whole library, because right now it hides everything unless you type in a search term. Okay, so here's how I worded the prompt. I said, cool, I just need a few changes to this. The icon selector should first of all allow the user to scroll through the icon library, not just see the first 50 or so like it currently does. Also, the user should be able to select an icon and a color and then click Add to Canvas button to place it on the canvas. The icon selector should have a preview of what the icon is going to look like. Lost my place. Preview of what the icon is going to look like with the chosen icon and color, so the user can decide if they like the appearance or want to change the color or icon before they place it on the canvas. Also, when the icon is placed on the canvas, it currently has a white box around it. If that's necessary for implementation reasons, to find the center of the object, then at least make it invisible. We don't want to see a white box around the icons added to the canvas, but I understand if you need edges to base the connectors and resizing functions on. Yeah, so that's my underlying assumption, is the reason it's putting white boxes around these icons is it needs something to mathematically calculate the center. And if you have just like random shapes, how is it going to calculate the center of a bicep or the center of a, you know what I mean? So I can understand why it did that, and it's probably going to need them there. We just want them to be invisible so we don't have to see them. All right, let's look at the response. Full library scrolling. The icon picker now displays the entire Lucid icon library, all 1,700 plus icons. You can scroll through all of them. Preview area of the modal has been redesigned with a split layout. The left side contains the searchable icon grid. The right side features a large preview area that updates instantly. Let's test that out. Okay, so we'll do, let's see, cloud. We'll select a color. Cool. Now we have a preview. Add to canvas. All right, and that's cool. So the outline goes away. We'll put the cloud up here, and then let's choose something else like a disk. Does it spell it like that way? Disk. I'm looking for like a hard drive disk. Yeah, we'll just use this one, and we'll give it orange. Okay, so like let's say we're drawing a diagram or a flowchart on how you do a backup and how you upload. Oops, what's going on there? Oh, that's interesting. Some shapes it's not really accurately finding the edge of. Anyway, let's see, we're doing a presentation on backing up your hard drive, and we want to show the hard drive icon, and then we have a connector to the cloud. And then I'm just trying to figure out what logic it's using. Yeah. It's completely losing its place with that cloud for some reason. I'm going to ask the agent to fix this issue. First, I'm just going to do a little more testing though to figure out if this is unique to the cloud shape, or does it happen with, yeah, see, it happens with other shapes too. It seems to be having a hard time tracking the center. The other thing with using AI to do apps like this is you want to do as much of your own troubleshooting as possible. So one of the things I want to test is it unique to icons or does it happen with shapes? So let's draw a connector to a shape and rotate. Okay, so yeah, it's the end that's facing the icon doesn't work properly. Let's see if I can declutter this. But the end that's facing the shape works beautiful. It's always pointing to the center. So there's something about the icons that it has trouble knowing or keeping track of where the center is. And that little bit of troubleshooting can save you thousands of tokens. I mean, you might go back and forth with the agent for the next 30 minutes trying to troubleshoot that, but the fact that you tested on your own and already determined that it doesn't happen with shapes and it only happens with icons could have just saved you, half an hour of troubleshooting with the agent. So I would picture it like this. You want to do the tough work, like the creativity, the problem solving, the testing. Let the agent do the monotonous work, the coding, the repetition, the implementation, the stuff that humans are slow at. So that you continue to be the creative driving force behind this and the agent's just sort of following your direction. Don't try to get the agent in the driver's seat, or else you end up with apps that are sloppy, they don't have the intended design, and you don't get to learn, right? Like doing this creative work helps you learn and grow and expand your ideas. And if you give too much agency to the agent, then you lose the creative part of the process. So I'm going to go ahead and prompt it, let it know that we troubleshot, whatever the word is, and that we think there's some problem tracking the center of icons. Okay, so I went ahead and prompted this. Connectors seem to have trouble tracking the center of icons. It tracks the center of shapes perfectly. But when a connector points to an icon, the end that is connected to the icon does not always point reliably to the center. It will sometimes point to invisible locations off to the side or corner or somewhere else around the icon. I think the key to fixing this is using the invisible box around each icon to determine its center and then use that center to place the end of the connector. Example attached of how the connector is pointing to somewhere in space nearby the icon instead of the center. So I gave it a screenshot of this right here of how the line's pointing off to the side so that it understands what I'm trying to say. All right, so here's the response. Icon center tracking. Connectors pointing to or from an icon now connect directly to the exact center of the icon's invisible bounding box rather than stopping at the edge. Since icons have transparent backgrounds and varying internal padding, this ensures the connector line always points perfectly to the middle of the icon, regardless of its shape. Rotation fix. I also noticed that if you rotated a square or text element, the connectors would still point to where the edges used to be. I went ahead and fixed the math for all the shapes so that connectors will now perfectly track the edges of rotated elements as well. Cool. I mean, that's something I noticed in Gemini 3.1 Pro in the last couple weeks, is that it finds while it's working on things, it seems to look at the code and look for errors and fix them. You do have to be careful to read what it does, because sometimes it will quote fix things that you actually liked that it considered a problem. But most of the time, I think its fixes are good. So let's try it out. Oh yeah, we wanted to mostly test out the icons feature. So let's stick with that theme of pretending we're creating an app or a presentation that describes how you back up your data to the cloud. One of the things that bothers me is that the icon line thickness is pretty extreme. Like personally, I think I would choose a little bit thinner line thickness, but I'm just going to stick with this for now. Okay, and then drive, and We'll make that green this time. We'll do a connector. Uh-oh. Okay, it is pointing to the center. That's the center. But we don't want it to be visible all the way to the center. I guess I should have clarified that. Okay, so it is, let's just try rotating it around and see if it's correctly tracking the center. It is. Okay, that's good. Yep. So it's tracking the center, but we don't want to see that part, right? We want the line to sort of stop just outside. And I'm not sure how to describe where I want it to stop. I just want it to look nice visually, like stop sometime or somewhere outside the shape. So that's kind of how I'll prompt it, and I'll be right back and see what the result is. All right, so my prompt to deal with this issue is, okay, the connectors now properly track the center of the icons. However, the connector lines should not be visible all the way to the center. That doesn't look nice. The line should typically only be visible up to the bounding box around an icon. For shapes, the line can be visible up to the edge of the shape because we know precisely where the edge of the shape is. However, for icons, I understand you probably don't have a way to calculate where the edge of each of the 1700 icons are. So let's just assume the invisible bounding box is the edge of the icon for connector and end tracing purposes. Also, the default line thickness for icons is a little too thick. Let's make the stroke width about 30% thinner. What distracted me for a second here is, I don't know where my drawing went. I might have accidentally refreshed the screen, but anywho, we'll wait for the agent to get done with its work, and then we'll check back in just a second. All right, let's see what the result looks like. Connector tracking. Connectors will now stop exactly at the invisible bounding box of the icon rather than pointing all the way to the center. This looks much cleaner and behaves consistently with other shapes. Icon thickness. I've reduced the stroke width of all icons, both on the canvas and in the picker preview, by 30% from the default 2 down to 1.4, giving them a sleeker, more refined appearance that fits better with the overall aesthetic. So let's try this out. Pick a blue cloud. Yeah, I do like that already better. The line thickness just looks a little cleaner. And then you notice the icon modal is a little slow to load, and there's 2 copies or 3 copies of a lot of these icons, so we're gonna have to do something about that eventually. For now, it's not that important. Okay, and we're gonna place a connector. Oh, come on. Seriously? That's not working right. All right, that sucks. It's gone back to this problem where it's not pointing to the center. Okay, give me a second. I'm gonna prompt the agent to try to fix this again. Also, I'm just curious why this appears to be cut off. Is it cut off, or is it just a sidebar that's connected to the edge? I mean, I guess I just don't like the look of it. It feels like it should be either floating or fully connected, but it's partially connected, which gives the impression that it's cut off by the edge of the screen. So, okay, I'm gonna go get to work, stop being distracted by shiny things, and ask the agent to fix this. All right, so here's the response from the agent. It says, I see what happened. My apologies. When I removed the special case that made connectors point to the exact center of the icons fell back to using the same bounding box logic as rectangles. However, the math I was using to calculate the edge of the bounding box had a flaw when dealing with certain angles. Okay, I just wanted to make sure it actually edited something and not just it's not just talking to me, it actually fixed something. However, the math I was using to calculate the edge of the bounding box had a flaw when dealing with certain angles, specifically when pointing towards the left side of an object, which caused the connector to snap to the wrong corner instead of the correct edge. I've completely rewritten the intersection math for the bounding box. It now correctly calculates the exact point. Okay, let's see. Let's use some other icon. Kind of sick of seeing the cloud. We'll add an apple and some meat? No. A bone? How about a face? An apple gets eaten by the face. All right. Now we'll add a connector. Cool. Okay, the connector line appears to stop at the correct location. Doesn't go to the center. Like, it's not visible in the center is what I mean. And does it follow it around? It does. Excellent. Look at that. Beautiful. And does it scale? It does. Okay, let's try adding some larger things here. I don't know, just a bean. A green bean. We'll make a large green bean with a connector to a small face. All right. I guess one little, and I don't know if I'd call it a flaw, but just the reality of the scaling ability in this app is that how should it know how close that line should go to the large green bean? Because over here, it's nice and close to the edges, but the bean has, like, if you picture an invisible rectangle around it, that's where it's going. It's basically going to the edge of an invisible rectangle. And honestly, I don't see a better way of doing that, because if it went any closer to the bean, like say it went into here, well then as you rotated it around, that line would start intersecting inside, and that wouldn't look good. So the fact that it stops at the bounding box, like out there, the invisible rectangle around it, is probably a good thing, even though it looks slightly weird, but it performs consistently, which is what you want. Okay, look at that. The scalability is awesome. You can zoom all the way in, mid-level, and that thing I just talked about is going to be kind of extreme at the maximum zoom level, so let's try it out. Oh, there's a nice little warning sign up here. Let's use that with some yellow. Just make it large. Warning, green bean and apples in the face. Okay. Wow, okay, now that's a problem. The larger the icon gets, the bigger the space gets, and the smaller the line appears proportionately. How would we solve that? I mean, it's doing everything correctly. It's doing it consistently, but it looks only proportional at this zoom level. It starts getting less proportional at this zoom level and looks ridiculous at this zoom level. So I'm going to have to put some thought into that. That's a little bit of a complex issue, and I'm not even sure how I would fix that. Because if I made it proportional to the warning symbol, and I told, like, say I thicken the line and I closed the gap, what would happen? It would mean that by the time we scaled down to the bean or to the face or the apple, the line would be like gigantic and it would look horrible. So that's going to take some creative problem solving. But you know what? This video is already almost an hour and a half, so I think this is probably good for today. What I'm going to do is lay out a few icons, some shapes and connectors, make a thumbnail to sort of show at the beginning of the video what we're working towards and what we're going to accomplish. And then, yeah, we're going to pick this up in another video and maybe make it part 2 and start fine-tuning different features. Like, I really want to see animations on the connector lines. That's going to be so cool. I actually want to do that right now, but do I have the patience? I've already been sitting here an hour and a half. I'm kind of getting kind of losing the motivation. But all right, let's give it a shot. I'm going to pause the recording for a minute, prompt what I'm looking for in connector animation, and see if we can get that implemented before the end of the video. All right, so I prompted this out, sort of what I was imagining in my head this animation feature would look like on a connector line. So here's the way I wrote it. I want to be able to right click on a connector line and select animate, which will bring up some options: the animation style, flow, wave, pulse, etc., and the direction. When the user selects the animation style, they also have to choose a direction of the flow. In order to allow the user to select a direction, we need to present them with 2 arrows that are parallel to the connector line. The user can then click on an arrow and determine the direction of the animation. For example, flow should be a dashed line that appears to flow in the direction the user selects towards one of the connector ends. Wave should appear to be a wave that flows in the direction of choice. Pulse should be an animation of the dashed line sort of shooting in the direction of choice, like a laser beam repeatedly firing in the direction indicated. If you have some other animations that you think would fit well here for connector lines, please add those as well. Whenever a connector animation is chosen, the user should be able to change the color, toggle a glow effect, toggle a pulse effect, and adjust the speed of the animation as well. Now, as I read through my prompt, I do realize there's a little bit of ambiguity and a little bit of repetition in there. I'm not sure how it will interpret all that and how it will implement it, but you know what? It's a creative process, and I'm kind of interested in seeing how it turns out. And then if I'm not happy with it, I can always go back and refine it. But for now, let's see how it turns out. I'm going to give it a minute to work, and we'll be right back. All right, it's finally done. That took a while. It took about 9 minutes. It says, right-click to animate. Right-click on any connector line on the canvas and select Animate from the context menu. Let's start by putting a few icons on here. We'll go ahead and use that apple again. The face icon. The bean. All right, let's see how this works. So, add a connector. Right click on it, animate. Select a style, say flow. Okay. It is flowing, but it doesn't look like it's flowing in the right direction. It almost looks like it's flowing in the wrong direction. Let's try wave. Oh, that's rough. Yeah, that wave looks terrible. Pulse. It looks like just a fast flow, honestly. Speed. Oh yeah, we can adjust the speed. I'm just playing around with the settings here to see how it looks. One thing is I don't like the arrows being right on the line because it obstructs your view of the line. But that's how it looks for first try. Laser, just a longer flow basically, like longer lines. Okay, I can actually see how the wave is working, but it's just really rough. Needs a lot of work. glow. I don't see any glow. And color. Oh, okay, I guess there's a little glow. Now that I added color. Glow on, glow off. Pulse opacity. Whatever that means. Oh, it's fading in and out. Pulsing. I think I'll remove that. I don't like that. So this is kind of the vibe I was going for. Like kind of a slow, steady flow. I probably had it create too many options, but that's jumpy for some reason. I'm going to have it smooth that out so it just goes continuously. So I think I will remove the wave, remove the laser. Honestly, we probably don't need all these styles. It probably should just be on or off, like flow or not flow. And the colors, the glow is kind of nice. I don't need pulse opacity. The speed selector should be different because, yeah, most of the time I think we'd use a speed way at the lower end of this selector, and we'd probably hardly ever use a speed like that, although it does look a little cool. And sure enough, it is cut off like I thought earlier. This menu is cut off. And it doesn't really fix itself if I adjust the width either. Okay, so I have a couple little modifications to make. Shoot. Because that selector is so far over, I couldn't even reach it. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and prompt those changes and get rid of some of the excess options. Get this menu moved over a little bit so that it doesn't get cut off on the screen, and we'll be back in a minute. All right, so here's how I prompted it. The new animation feature is nice but needs a few changes. Let's stick with the flow animation and remove the other types of animations. So now animate just basically means flow on or off. Let's remove the pulse option. It doesn't look as nice as I imagined. The speed slider is weighted too far to the left. In other words, the middle of the speed slider should be a standard medium flow, while the upper and lower ends should be available for higher speed or slowness. Adjust the scale of the speed slider so that the middle of the slider represents a medium, gentle sort of flow. I know that's not super specific, but the agent's usually pretty good at understanding what medium means in the context of people. And if not, I can always just tell it like 1 dash per second or something more specific. Finally, the flow animation itself is jumpy. It seems to be a looping animation, which is fine, except that the start and end of the loop don't line up perfectly, so it appears to jump every second or so. Smooth that out so that the loop is indetectable to the user and just flows continuously. Finally, I want connector line styles to have a few line style options. Looks like I made a typo there. Not always just dashes. Allow the user to right-click on a line and change the style to circles, open circles, which are open circles, dots, which are just filled circles, short dashes, medium dashes, and long dashes. So we'll go ahead and give the agent a minute to work on that and then check back and see how it turns out. All right, let's see how it turned out. Simplified animation. The animation options have been simplified to just a single animate flow toggle switch. The pulse effect and other animation styles have been removed. Smooth looping. The jumpiness in the animation has been completely fixed. The animation now calculates the exact cycle length based on the chosen line style so that the loop is perfectly seamless and continuous. Speed slider adjustment. The speed slider has been recalibrated. The range is now 0.2 to 2. Meaning the middle of the slider, 1.1, is a gentle medium flow. I also added slow, medium, fast labels under the slider. New line styles, solid, short dash, medium dash, long dash, dots, open circles. Let's try it out. All right, add a connector between these, add another one between these. Go ahead and animate, edit the line, animate the flow. Cool. Oh, look at that too. It actually flows in the right direction now. Probably because the animation was messed up, or the looping animation was messed up, is what made it appear like it was flowing in the wrong direction. The flow speed. Cool. Slow it down. Yep. Looks nice. The glow effect, I decided to keep the glow effect, but since it's gray, you can't really see it. Okay, and then short dashes, very nice. Solid, I don't see the purpose of having a solid line if it's animated, but that doesn't matter too much right now. Medium dashes, long dashes, dots, open circles. What the heck? What happened to that? Yeah, open circles is malfunctioning. And the dots are a little too far apart, at least in my opinion. Okay, so the final thing that I have a little bit of an issue with is I don't like these arrows being right on top of the line. Makes it just hard to see the animation. So that's the next thing I'm going to prompt for. Okay, so the way I prompted this one was I said the open circles option doesn't work, but honestly I don't like it anyways. I just think the open circles aren't going to look good. So just remove that option from the line animation menu. Also, the direction arrows that the user clicks on to determine the flow are right on top of the line itself, obstructing the view. Let's move them to just above the line so that the user can see the animation they're designing without the arrows obstructing their view. We'll give that a second to do its thing and come right back. Okay, so the agent says removed open circles option, repositioned the direction arrows. Let's try it out. Edit the line, animate the flow. Okay, that's definitely better. It's just a minor preference of mine, but these arrows, I'm not a big fan of. Like, they're too large in proportion to the line, and I kind of wish they were more like ovals or pill-shaped or something. I don't like the current look. And actually, I'm not a big fan of the line style arrow. I'd rather have like a triangle or something, but I can fine-tune that later. It works. That's the important thing. And then we're going to make it flow that direction. We're going to turn it red so it matches the apple. Give it a glow. And then on this one, edit the line, make it green, short dashes, long dashes, dots. Yeah, let's do dots. Animate the flow. Let's add something else too. Add a sun. Make it yellow. Short dashes. Animate. Make it a little slower. Speed that one up. Cool, huh? Look at that. So we've got an interactive presentation canvas. We can add icons, shapes, colors, animated lines. That's not bad. And in total, we've been doing this for an hour and 40 minutes. So yeah, that's a bit of time, but I don't know about you. I couldn't build something like this in an hour and 40 minutes without the help of AI. So that definitely was really fun. And this is an app I'm literally going to use myself. So I'm excited about it, not only because it was fun to build in front of you, but because this is going to be a foundation for the future of some of my videos. I'm going to use it as a presentation tool and continue building on it. You know, one of the things that comes to mind is I want to be able to change backgrounds, give the backgrounds different colors. I want to be able to add like watermark or images in the background to sort of give it, like say you're doing a video on the environment, I want to be able to put a light opacity image of, who knows, like a field, mountains, sky, like just something in the background, so that while you're talking about the topic, right, and then you're doing a video on like tech, and you can have like an office background, right, that's just sort of in the background for the topic. And let's see, what else do I want here? I'm probably going to streamline the sidebar because I don't need a separate icon for each shape. I'll probably add some more shapes like triangles and things like that, and then just combine them into a single icon that pops up a menu. The connector, in this planning mode, which is where you sort of specify like the center of a topic and then you save it. Let me just adjust something real quick here, because I feel like something got out of scale. Yeah, my browser. That's why I couldn't see the edge of this the whole time. At some point I zoomed my browser, and that's why I couldn't see the edge of this menu. So it does work after all. There's the edge. Anyhow, yeah, I'm going to probably streamline this, like make it into a crosshair or some other icon, not just a plus sign. Plus sign doesn't really represent what I want it to. And then, yeah, I mean, off the top of my head, I can't think of all the things I'm going to do, but the color palette needs to be bigger. You know, I need more than just these 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 11 colors, it looks like. I'd like to see a few dozen colors, like a nice big color palette. Also, this loads too slow. When I click on, yeah, it's like a 1 or 2 second delay. That's way too slow. It needs to load instantly, so that probably means the app needs to have them preloaded. And I'm gonna have to fix the fact that, like, look, multiple copies of the same icon, so that'll be a bug I need to fix. And yeah, I think for now we're done. That's part 1. Hour and 45 minutes, built a fully functional app. Oh, and of course, I'll mention this one last thing. I mentioned it earlier, but it's definitely going to be necessary for myself to use it. And if I share it with all of you, we need the back end built, right? We need the Firebase, Firestone database built, so that when you create some canvases and some projects that you're proud of, you can save them and reload them later, edit them, work on them, come back to them, revisit them, mix and match, copy one that you like, use it in another one, sort of copy pieces of it. Again, I'm going to want to build like a selector so that you could select a rectangle around a group of objects and copy them. So that's another thing I'm going to want to do. And then as we discussed earlier, I'm going to need to figure out a way to deal with how things scale, especially how lines and connectors scale. Because when you create a small group down here and then you create a large group up here, like a large object, and then you connect them, the result is not super desirable because the line is so thin. But we'll fix that. I'll find a solution for it. I hope this was helpful. Gave you some ideas, showed you the power of what you can do here. I also tried to work as efficiently as possible. I showed you how, you really need to outline your own ideas in like a notepad. That's what I literally started with, was just Notepad in Apple Notes. And I typed it out, I tried to word it how I was thinking about it, imported it into, copy and pasted it into Gemini, let Gemini streamline it for me. And it's a lot, Gemini is better at being more technical and clear versus just my brain dump. And then I took that information and plugged it into Google AI Studio so that by the time you get to Google AI Studio, it's a pretty well described idea. So don't just try to, don't start with Google AI Studio. At least I wouldn't recommend it, because you'll spend half your tokens, you'll waste half your tokens just brainstorming. And I think this is a better way to go about it. So if this was helpful, I really appreciate if you like, subscribe, comment anything, what you think about this, any ideas that you'd like to see in the future, how this might be useful to you. I'm trying to grow the channel. I only have 18 subscribers right now and only a couple dozen videos, so I'm at the very start of my journey, but I'm excited about this. I want to build this into like a full-time career, I'd like to eventually have a suite of apps, creative apps, productivity apps, all kinds of tools. Originally, I established this channel called Life Skills Decoded because I wanted to talk about life skills and managing time, managing finances, relationships with your family and your marriage, and at work, career decisions, things like that. And so I ended up here because I was trying to create tools that would help me in those goals. And before I knew it, most of my videos lately have just been about creating apps. And I'm a little nervous about that because I'm afraid that people might just start knowing me for creating apps, but in the long run, that's not my only goal. I want to create apps, I want to create tools, but I want to teach people with these apps. I'd like to teach people about managing time, money, career, relationships, investing, health, fitness, all kinds of stuff. So I have a lot of ideas, and this is just my expression of sort of how to get those ideas out to the world. So again, I hope to see you again on the next video. Check out some of my other ones where I build apps for budgeting. I built one for No Man's Sky, but I haven't released it yet. But it's actually like a discovery tracker for No Man's Sky, so that was kind of fun to build. Okay, I'm gonna wrap this up. It's been going too long. Talk to you guys later.